This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Saints Pod. My name is Greg, and as always today joined by my good friend, wonderful co-host, Zach. And mate, it's Transfer Tuesday, but what are we going to talk about? Is there anything? It's real quiet, isn't it?
Like, I get it's a meme at this point, but genuinely, like, trying to do research for today, and you just, like, obviously, Derby's going to be big, so a lot of it's just flooded with Derby news. But, like, I just think that we're not linked with anyone. I think that the face value that we did not take the club at when they're like, oh, it's going to be a quiet window, and it feels like they had one bit of business in mind, which was a new goalkeeper. That was all they've decided they want to do. And they've decided to wrap everything else up pretty much then. And it raises a lot of questions, which I'm sure we'll get onto. And obviously some things have happened. But yeah, I don't really know how I feel about it all, mate.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of the things, I don't know, it felt a bit like were maybe like setting a pathway to bring someone in. Like Ronnie Edwards going, like, was such an odd one that you kind of got the feeling that maybe they had something in mind. But unless they're just playing their cards incredibly close to their chest, which, I mean, is not really the way it tends to be done, right?
Nope.
It's just an odd one. It's just like radio silence across the board, apart from definitely at least from the incoming front, right? There's just.
Oh, I think though, like, ultimately, they said nothing's going to happen. We were like, yeah, all right, that's what they all say. And I think that they told us what was going to happen. I think the baffling thing is like, yeah, like some of the outgoings are just a bit strange. Like Bazunu made sense considering the plan was, to replace him pretty quick. They'd already lined that up. There was conversation about it for a while. It took slightly longer than they wanted it to happen. And everything else is kind of outgoing, not necessarily the outgoings we've kind of wanted to see. And for me, if it's like there's a big push to get promotion this season, doesn't feel like there is anymore. I think they've kind of settled with the fact that we're probably going to spend another season in the Championship because, I know that you don't want to necessarily throw the kitchen sink in at January and you might not have the names lined up and stuff, but it all feels very, very cautious. And I know that's because our January windows haven't been good, right? Over the last couple of years, I'd maybe say what David Brooks was brought in during the Championship season, right? But other than that, we have Gromback. And the year before that was like the January window where we got all of the guys that have now gone. Where was that Paul Onuachu was January, wasn't he? If I remember rightly.
Suleiman was a January one, right?
Yeah, so I can kind of understand, but it kind of feels like they set up for the beginning of the season. They decided to do all their squad planning and with Downs and Azaz and Cienzo and this and the other, and they're like, brilliant. This is a team that will boss the Championship and potentially win the league. And for a lot of us, believe that, right? To be fair. And then obviously the actual last couple of months have played out, which has not been the case at all. So I wonder if it's just like because they didn't have a plan in place, they don't want to just panic buy players. So they're just choosing not to and instead removing stuff from the wage bill. But like also, is it just that they've not highlighted a candidate that they think fits? I think with the Ronnie Edwards thing, we talked about this before. My opinion on the Ronnie Edwards thing has not changed. A lot of people thought, oh, okay, they're bringing somebody in because they're letting him go. I genuinely think that he was not a buy when Spurs was in charge. And because of that, he went out on loan for development last season. He's gone, I want to go back to QPR because I'm not getting the game time here. They've put in a bid of, a little bit more profit. Because he's not in like the big long-term plans or not being built into the squad in a way that is sufficient for him, they aren't really bothered about letting him go. And I will also point out that, at that point, regardless of whether or not we consider him to be like a first-choice centre-back, Kaya Sander came back off of loan, who, was a little bit involved in pre-season. I don't expect to see him involved much. But honestly, since Will Still's gone, we haven't really seen Ronnie Edwards involved much. And also
Yeah, I
now
guess
we've
it's
got,
just another option, right? Of
yeah,
presumably the same implied. I don't know. It's such a strange one. I mean, to me, obviously, got Ronnie Edwards go in. You might think they had a replacement lined up, but for me, the gaping hole in our squad is someone who can play like Ross Stewart when Ross Stewart can't. Like, I'm not
yeah,
saying that that's the
I get that.
option you necessarily need every single game, but having that different profile of striker, like we talked before about the fact that at the start of the season that perhaps that's exactly what they thought they were getting with Damien Downs, and that just wasn't really the case. But that's, I mean, are they just expecting him to stay fit because historically that doesn't play in our favour. So that's the one part to me that just feels.
If the goal, if the goal isn't promotion,
Mm,
why would you rush that now? And that's what it says to me more than anything else, right? It makes me
mm,
feel that if the goal isn't actually promotion, you can afford to kind of wait a little bit, see who's going to be here at the end of the season, rebuild people, rebuild, look to find different profiles of player and bring them back in for another go next year. Also, we're going to be in a slightly financially stronger position than a couple of the other clubs. Leicester have just sacked their manager, and we've still heard nothing about their charges. So maybe we can just compete consistently overspend all we want, right? Like, or points deduction or whatever it was.
mm.
So yeah, like I agree with what you say, but if you are trying to think of it as a long term strategy, they are not going to just randomly have found a player by now that they think fits that profile that they're going to chuck money at. Maybe the actual long term goal, Greg, is to send Damien Downs off, and if they don't activate his clause, he comes back. Right? There's
Yeah.
also potential
He
loan returnees we've
played
got to think
he
about as
played
well.
63 minutes the other day for the team he's out on loan to in Germany, which I forget their name, but is
It's
it
Hamburg, right?
Hoffenheim? Hamburg. I knew it began with a H. We're getting there. He played 63 minutes, didn't have a shot. So it's,
That's
it's not it's
yeah.
not great form,
So,
is
so
it?
maybe, maybe not, but like that screams to me that unless he kind of starts getting into form, they're probably not going to activate his clause, which means he's going to come back. Ben Brereton Diaz might. We still haven't really heard much about
Yeah.
him. One of the bits of news that I did forget, even to talk to you about pre-show, was Sugawara might come back because
Oh,
they're going to try and negotiate a lower fee.
right.
I don't know if we'll go for that because like the whole point of sending out someone loan and agreeing a fee at that point is that it's done and dusted, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's necessarily coming back. Someone else might come in for him, but there's a good chance at some point that unless Jalert goes back and Sugawara comes back here, we might end up with like 4 right backs, which is insane.
That's crazy when you think about sort of some of the positions we've been in this season with sort of lack of fullbacks to suddenly feel it's really strange. And is it just too right? I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying, but it just we're only 7 I know we're 15th. We're only 7 points off playoffs. Like as a club, bearing in mind the actual financial ramifications of staying down rather than going up. Like, can we afford to write the season off at this point?
Why
Like
it's
7
not
points
writing the
seems
season
like
off, but it's like why
one
at
three
this
game
point
week.
you'd expect them to start doing something about it. You'd start to expect them to throw the kitchen sink at it a little bit. And yeah, okay, not panic transfer people in. And again, it might be that we're doing the old classic Saints thing of like leaving it to the last day to bring anybody in. But
Mm,
the other thing that it just we would have seen something by now. I feel we'd have seen a link. We'd have seen anything, right? All of the links to incomings players have been really tenuous at best. A lot of them have been youth prospects more than anything else. And when we have been sort of linked with a player, it's been like we apparently went in for Perot at some point and he turned us down. And there was also talk that we went in for Frings. So like they are looking at those kind of things clearly, but like I think they're not willing to just pull the trigger on something that doesn't suit. And they've said that
mm,
multiple times. And I think that's the problem is that if they don't sign somebody and it's not because they're not a good fit, what would you rather? Like they spent like a couple of £1 million on someone you've never heard of who comes in and does poorly where they're going to get chastised for it, or we don't spend that couple of £1 million. We have the squad we've got now, which, you know, you always say is only like a whisper away from being like a really good team, and we don't really know what that piece is that's missing. But yeah, I just don't think it's going to be.
Expect us as people who watch the club and admittedly like focus on the club a lot and think about it to know the answer. But I do hope that the people running the club and who are there at the training ground every day do. Like,
yeah, but that's the thing. So then you'd expect that then, you know, if they come out and tell us there's going to be no movement in January, the manager has basically said nothing about it. You're not seeing a lot of movement. You're not seeing even any links into the press. You're not even seeing agents say much. Then you've got to go based off the evidence in front of you. And the evidence in front of us at the moment, and I'm happy to eat my words in a week, like, you know, a couple of days' time if we end up getting somebody in, is that they are not really intending to bring anybody in. And that's the reality of the situation, right? Like, yeah. And that really is frustrating. And I feel like a lot of people are annoyed about it. You know, ourselves included, but I also kind of get it from a perspective of, well, you know, they probably put all of their eggs in the basket of the summer transfer window. They probably planned a little bit. The big thing that they've done is replace the goalkeeper. They've realised that maybe it's not as big as, you know, it's not just the goalkeeper. Well, what else are we going to do now? We've got 30 days. Well, let's not panic buy. Let's just rebuild in the summer. And that's what it feels like. And I know that you'd love to be like, oh, well, you know, the goal is still promotion. I'm like, yeah, I think it probably still is a little bit.
It feels so pessimistic when, like I say, like one successful 3-game week, which I know is not something that we've really experienced yet this season, it should be enough to turn it around. And it's you're right though. It's just like so close and yet so far every single time. It's so frustrating at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's an indictment of the wider sentiment against Sports Republic. But one of the other things about it is that if they said there wasn't going to be any movement and we've riled ourselves up and think there is going to be, is it more on us at that point? You know,
maybe our hopes were just too high. Well, let's talk about some of the rumours and some of the actual stuff that has been confirmed exits, right? So I guess Ryan Fraser now gone from the club. It was the last 6 months of his contract, right? So he's just gone, presumably on a free, but for an undisclosed amount at least, to, is it Western Sydney, where he went and scored a winner on the weekend?
I don't think it's going to be a lot, if there was a fee involved. But yeah, he went. He scored a winner. He sent out a little video, like a not video thing, but like a picture on Instagram of him holding up the playoff trophy and talked about that he had a good time here, and like he doesn't leave with, I think, the level of animosity and hostility that he's left other clubs at, right? Like, yeah. I think in the comments of that picture, I saw somebody, like a Bournemouth fan, be like, yeah, whatever, you snake. It's just like, man, it's like 3 clubs ago. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm kind of like, you know, as I said to you yesterday, might have been useful to bring him on in place of Cienzi yesterday, and maybe you could have got a winner last minute, but like, it is what it is. You made the accurate, you know, the accurate summary of the fact that he's got 6 months left. It makes sense for him to get off the wages now, especially where it's probably higher wages than we would have liked.
Yeah,
seems to be enjoying it out there. It seems to be
reports are that he was like our second highest earner or something stupid. So, you know, that compared to his like position in the squad doesn't match, right? There's a mismatch.
Yeah, correct. So, yeah, I guess all the best to him. He said he wanted something different. He wanted a challenge. He wanted to move away. It's completely different from where he's been beforehand. It gives him that option, and it's just kind of. We seem to be, you know, I don't know if he was necessarily one that I would call one of the deadwood, like some people are kind of saying that he is, but I think he would have been a useful utility player to the end of the season at least.
Yeah, like I think that when he came on for us, you know, he always gave it a good go and
earlier in the season he played better,
good stuff. Yeah, and start of the season, he came in at the start of the season. in like ridiculously good shape, right, and looked like just back to a Ryan Fraser we'd not seen for a long time, and then took a knock and was out for a bit, right, and that was just kind of never really battled his way back into the team from that at all. So yeah, I mean, when you're talking about players that could have been, viable options, it's I don't think he's the first name that jumps to mind that we could be have been put into better use. So it makes complete sense to me to move him on. It seems like a good move for him. Like, I mean, nice move to Australia. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's it'll be what it'll be, but it's not like we're. The other thing to point out is of the ex Premier League teams, we are not isolated in the fact that Ipswich have brought in Mehmeti, right? I think
Mm.
Leicester have brought in nobody. We've brought in Peretz. We're actually on par with where those teams were at as well, and that's
Mm.
after the financial ramifications of last year. Coventry have brought in a couple of players. Middlesbrough, I think, have brought in a couple of players. So, they are definitely trying to solidify their place at the top of the table. Yeah,
Mm.
I don't know. The more I think about it, the more it just feels like it's not pessimistic. I think it's realistic, right? It's just frustrating because also feeds into the narrative of we do not invest properly, or we only invest what we've made and stuff, right? And it's like, oh, we invest tons and tons into the club, and you're like, yeah, but would have liked you to have a plan B if plan A didn't work out, and like plan B for if plan A didn't work out seems to be the actually just speeding up plan A, right, which was to put Tonda in charge.
Yeah.
And that means when it comes to the transfers, I think that they genuinely thought they nailed it so well in they didn't think they need to be scurrying around like they are at the moment.
Mm.
And Ryan Fraser's departure is, it's just kind of like, of all the players, probably one of the better utility players, but completely understandable why he goes. It's just that every single thing we hear from the club at the moment is like, this person's gone, this person's gone. But also, some of the players that are going are ones that we wouldn't expect to go or would want to go.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because there are still other players who are not in the picture at all. That are rumored or not rumored, right? So, I mean, let's start with the rumors. So, Sami Adozi has been. I've seen some news that he's been linked with several European clubs, but I've not seen any names anywhere.
no,
Um,
lots of apparently the rumor mill says that he would be allowed to go to a European club. He wouldn't be allowed to go elsewhere in the championship. We wouldn't want to sell him to a rival, right? Is basically what I'm seeing.
yeah,
But still, even then, like, what was the other rumor that apparently he's been available to play the entirety of the year, and they've just not chosen to play him? Which again,
which
this feels the whole thing feels just a bit weird. And again, like no one's come out and actually. I don't know if any of the sources are actually solid on that.
Yeah, well, I mean that's an interesting one, right? Because obviously we're not on the training ground to see what happens sort of week in week out to know if that is the right option or not. But you would think that, especially at this level, there's something different that he could bring to the team. He was, when he played for us, was always a player that was quite happy to pick up the ball and drive. And so, like, immediately in my head, it's like, well, that's like a logical, even if it's just like rotation or a power sub player, to feels like a better option to bring on for Cienza than Jay Robinson, who's been doing all right, but that's not really his game, right? Like,
No, I think that's the other thing. So on that specific point, is it more that they're trying to push people through from the academy, which is always also a long term goal? So rather than putting their eggs in the basket of admittedly a youth prospect when we bought him, but that was a couple of years ago at this point. He doesn't really. We don't know whether he wants to play or move on. Apparently, he's saying he's always ready. Like a lot of the Instagram posts he puts up are just like he's ready to play.
yeah,
Is it just the fact that they're like, well, we're just going to move you on. We'd rather try and focus on the academy because, from a long term perspective, if they know then that we're not going up this year, and again, like this isn't to be pessimistic, it's just to be realistic about how this season's gone. Are they starting to think about the fact that they're going to have to utilize the academy more if we're not able to buy players that are a couple of £1 million a pop, right? So maybe they're just thinking, well, we can make some money off of him. He gets to kind of get some move that he wants, but the whole thing's just a bit weird, and I'm kind of with you. And I don't think we'll ever really get the answers. It was very much like the Flynn Downs Ipswich situation, right? That we never really got answers about it. But we came into this season, and now Flynn Downs is very much a Saints player again. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree with you. I think it probably would be a slightly better option. But also the guy's not played for 6 months. So
yeah, so
when people always say that, like this is like right? When Malakochab had all that time out, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to save our central defence." Then he came in, and like he had like half a game where he was right, but it wasn't quite like the levels that people were expecting, and the level of expectation was so high because of how good he was this first season here. And I think that that's probably going to be the same with Adozi either way. I wouldn't be opposed to him coming back into the squad. And also, maybe it is actually a fitness thing, and they are trying to work him up to fitness, and maybe he will act as a new option, so they don't need to bring in a winger to replace Jay Robinson, or to have that extra option. We just haven't seen it deployed yet, right? Either way, it's the whole thing just a bit weird, isn't it? It smells a bit fishy.
Really strange. And speaking of deafening silence and no rumours, the other player that maybe we'd have expected to see go this window, Joe Aribo, right? I guess just kind of sees the rest of his contract out with a whimper. Like, I don't see him coming into the mix.
Absolutely no links at all.
Yeah.
Not heard a single thing.
I don't see any universe where he, makes his way back into the team. So I don't know what that means for him. Really, it's a bit of a sad way to end his tenure with us. Really, because ever popular figure. It's just
the only link that I've seen is from a website, which I think is a local news website called Daily Record, which potentially links him to Rangers because he's still quite a fan favourite, and that is a position they are looking to fill, like attacking sort of midfield striker position. But again, that is like the same link that the same link from
like Adam Armstrong coming back.
Yeah, well, Ward-Prowse going back probably has slightly more legs because I imagine there's quite a push for him to come back, and a lot of commentary will look at it and go, "Oh, it's a no-brainer." But obviously, you're seeing him now linked to Burnley. Which makes more sense for set pieces and stuff. But I was thinking more of like the Adam Armstrong to Wrexham because somebody somewhere said that they're spending 19 million quid on some like French league player. They're like, why don't they just buy Adam Armstrong, top goal scorer of the league? And that now is enough to generate a story. It's the same thing where we were talking about how I started reading through a story about Ross Barkley supposedly coming to Saints, and it turned out to just be Football Martin having a conversation, being like, "Yeah, he's someone I'd like to see here," and that now is being generated into news stories. Like it would be weird that we could just make something up now, and someone might take it and print it as news. So that's difficult as it is. So
that's crazy. I've heard that Messi wants to come and link up and have like a South American dream duo with a couple of Leos and play alongside.
You just need
wrap
to
up his career at a proper club. So if we could just
get
this
isn't
the ball
FIFA,
on that,
right? You can't even make that sign on an FM; it'll never join. Come on now. But in all seriousness, like it means that if what we are getting, if the level of like scraping the barrel is so bad, they're like getting transfer rumors from like content creators like ourselves and stuff. So, this is why I'm kind of more convinced there's just nothing going on, or somehow they've managed to keep everything quiet, and it'll be someone we've never heard of. He'll have a ridiculous amount of pressure on him, no matter what. But you're right, when it comes to sort of the outgoings that we'd expect, like Joe Aribo, there isn't any links.
Nothing.
Even over the summer, the links were Turkey, not any specific club in Turkey, and that he wasn't really feeling it. So yeah, unless he's going to go for a resurgence, but personally, with 6 months to go, I just don't see it.
Yeah, that's it. I've got a question for you, Zach, that might genuinely reveal that I live too much in a bubble.
Sure.
Is it just us though? Because like the whole window as a whole feels like real quiet, real dead. Like not just Saints transfers, just transfers, news and rumours in general. I'm not picking up a huge amount of it on my sort of travels in the world of social media.
Um, I think that it really depends, right? There have been a couple of clubs that have been a bit more active, but this window has not been the huge window you'd expect it to. Like it seems that they're now waiting for the January and winter windows always kind of felt like it's a panic buy window, right? And
Mm.
over the last couple of years, like clubs can't afford to keep doing that, and you're seeing that it's only clubs with spending power that are doing the bits, right? So you even like in the Premier League, like Man City have brought Semenyo and Gahey in, but like a lot of the rest of the Premier League has been pretty quiet, like maybe a transfer here or there. And the Championship's been similar. There are some teams that have brought in a lot more like on loan and stuff like that, teams that are struggling with injuries. And that's kind of, I guess, originally what it was for, right? It was to deal with anyone that picks up injuries. It's not meant to be replacing your entire squad. But it does feel quieter. And again, I don't know if that is just our bubble. I don't know if it's because we focus so much on what's going on Saints, is that, you know, we all the stuff we follow kind of ignores other transfers. But yeah, if anything, it's been more manager movement, in my opinion, than the player movement, right?
Yeah.
And that might result in team movement. But I think that because of
Well,
how
itself might be a contributing factor, right? You
yeah,
probably
but if you look at how volatile, how many managers in the championship have been replaced this year? Like Norwich, West Brom, us. I'm thinking there are
Leicester.
more. Leicester,
Yeah.
Middlesbrough, not through
Yeah.
their own choice, you know.
Sheffield United.
So yeah, like you think so all of those things that have happened, you know, that means that they don't want to kind of rush. They want to wait until we get to the summer and then potentially plan rebuilds or whatever you want to do with it, right? But yeah, it does genuinely feel, but it's just kind of, I don't know, you just kind of want that boost of positivity. And
Yeah.
arguably, we can say that although technically not in the window because it was a free transfer, Romeo would have also, was a transfer in for us.
Yeah.
But again, in a position that, in my opinion, we didn't really need. For me, it
Yeah.
felt like
Another
it was
strange
coverage.
one, right?
It
Yeah.
was coverage for Shea Charles. Then he played 2 games and disappeared off the face of the earth. And I don't know if that's just fitness or what, but like it's just a bit weird.
Because it's also like a slightly weird position now, right? Where because of how quiet it's been, if we went out and bought a striker for cheap from Germany or something, because that's where we seem to, have our best scouting network or whatever, and it's like a prospect, like another youngster who might do well, but is a thought for the future. He could end up in another position where, like, just the pressure of being that signing that by some will immediately be perceived as, well, this is the answer to our goal scoring problem. Is you don't want to incorrectly put that pressure on someone when that's not the point of bringing them in for that, right? It's
Yeah,
a
and I
tricky
think that's
situation.
always the case, and I think that's just a problem with the way that we digest transfers as like a culture more than a specific club thing, and like not to get too philosophical and esoteric or whatever, but there is a lot of sort of we will bring in a young player for the future that goes into the development squad. We'll announce the sign in, and then everyone will be like, well, that's not the striker that we need, and the 25 plus goals a year golden unicorn doesn't exist. If the rumours are to be confirmed, we have looked for Perot, and he's decided not to come here or come back to the championship at all. So they're just not willing to risk it. I think partially due to the reasons that you point out, which is they don't have to deal with everyone being mad about it, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at. Might just be, it's just my opinion on it. But I genuinely feel like this window, we should have just believed what they said.
Yeah.
And I hate,
very
and I
clearly
guess
laid out for us in December,
so
and
again,
we
or we're going to look
chose to
absolutely
take
foolish
it.
by next transfer Tuesday.
Oh, look, let's hope. Let's hope either way, I guess. But look, that's it. That's all we've got time for today. Zach, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Let us know. What do you think will come first? United bloke cutting his
United
hair.
Strand.
United Strand, thank you. Getting a haircut or us signing a striker? Let us know in the comments, on the socials. When's it going to happen? We are Daily Saints Pod everywhere on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, Blue Sky, everywhere. Hit us up. Let us know how you're feeling, what you're thinking. We love hearing from you. Drop us a like, drop us a subscribe. Those things go a long way to helping us out now that we are a newly independent podcast. We will be back tomorrow to talk more football goodness. But until then, everyone, hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you then.
This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.